And welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube. And we are streaming at WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up the radio signal, our 50,000 watt blowtorch, well, you can always catch the stream, and we appreciate that. Please give me a follow on X. It's just Andrew Gosser, ANDREW. Gasser, and the phone number today, if you want to be part of the program, the number is 601 879 0002. And the text line is open. Got some great stories to go through. The texts are awesome. Appreciate it always. The texting number is 601 879 5060. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of January, 2026. And the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show, it's standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You are the saints. I'm a saint. Not in the saint like St. Peter or St. Paul. We're the workers. And that's going to be kind of a theme today. You know, we're always planting, we're always watering, we're always harvesting. We're always out there doing that work. You never know when it's going to happen, pop up and happen to where you get a chance to really help somebody out who needs it. There's all sorts of places to start. Uh, Last night was a really great night. We got to meet with the Republican or the Hinds County Republican Executive Committee, and we just got to talk about some things that are happening. And we have a primary that's coming up, and election judges are needed. And this show is all about getting you plugged into the system so that you can have more responsiveness. You have a little bit more of your skin in the game, and it's just one of those things where in Hinds County, unlike Madison County or Rankin County, the Republican Party does not have the Board of Elections conduct their election. It's the party that does it themselves, and it's a great way to get people involved. So if you are going to be 17 by election day of 2026, you can be an election judge. It just happens to be March 10th. It is starting to kick off to campaign season for all the primaries, and there's some stories out there that are going to talk about the primaries. Benny's got a primary for his 2nd congressional district with uh, Elizabeth Warren acolyte, which should be pretty interesting. There's going to be other primaries too as well. Congressman Guest and Congressman Kelly do not have a primary this year. However, Congressman Easel does have a primary. That's down on the coast, Mississippi 4, for those who are wondering. But the meeting was really good. And one of the things that consistently comes up, and I appreciate all of you who tuned in to Clay this morning, and we're talking about, hey, Clay was exhorting you all, get to know your congressman, get to know your senators, get to know your local people. And I probably give this talk 15, 20 times a quarter. And so many of you texted me this morning saying, hey, how do I find out who my state senator is? Who's my state rep? It's really easy. Just go to your favorite search engine and type in My Election Day MS and hit enter. It will take you to Secretary Michael Watson's election website, and you just type in your zip code, and you start to type in your address, and it'll auto-populate it. You hit enter, and you're going to see it's going to pull up your voting polling station. In my case, it's Terry 2. And there's a little icon with a blue icon with a house on it. It says View My Office Holders. And you just click on that View My Office Holders, and it will tell you everybody from the president and the vice president to your state senators to the governor, and it'll give you your state reps and state. So as Clay was talking to you about school choice this morning and how whether you're against it or for it, to go ahead and let your state reps know, that's how you contact them. That's how you find out who it is. And unfortunately, we can always update and make different websites better. There's no hot links to that. So in my case, if I wanted to go ahead and talk to my state senator, who is David Blount, I would have to just cut and paste that and do a search for David Blount, and then I could get his contact information. Same for Fabian Nelson. So this is how you do it. At WYAB, we just don't sit there and complain about stuff just to complain about it. Solutions. We're not just sound bites and slogans. We are actual solutions. And this is your solution. And it's my hope that between now and 2028, so many more people will be brought in to the political system. I prefer on the conservative side, but the more people who are plugged in and operating in that spirit, it's going to be better for the state of Mississippi. It's going to be better for the county, and it's going to be better for our family. It's so much easier to communicate with a state rep or state senator than it is, say, your congressman or your U.S. representative. And for me personally, even though I do have my opinions on school choice, and we can go down that road if we want to, but I had a chance last night to talk to a couple state representatives, and one of the things that isn't being talked about with the school choice is that the school that the parents want to send their kid to. So you've got a kid in Jackson, you want to send him to Northwest Rankin. Northwest Rankin can say no for any reason. And this is why having good school board members is paramount. That's part of the bill, and a lot of people don't realize that, but the school board can say no. Now, if you don't really pay attention to your school board, if you're not really activated and involved in it, then I can understand the worry and concern. But that leads to a whole 'nother issue that's really been, evident in the communications I have with all of you, the wonderful listening audience, with my friends who are politically inclined, and to my family. This sense of just it's all going downhill quick. Everything's not working the way it's supposed to. My elected officials don't listen to what I say. And I have to say that while I am not black pilled, I understand why so many are. You look at the confidence in the judicial system, it's waning. The confidence in our reporters, in our social, whether it be social media or legacy media, it's falling, it's waning, and no one really trusts what's going on. Then you add on top of that the advent of AI, and my goodness, we are gonna talk about AI in the next segment, but just I get sent so many stories, and the one story that I wanna talk about because I know a lot of you have sent it to me, and that is the Venezuelan commander who outed 60 former and current US senators, saying that they were taking kickbacks from the state or the failed state of Venezuela. The country is in turmoil right now. I cannot find any reliable news source on that, and I'm not saying I fo they traced it back last month. This actually came out last month, for those of you who don't know, uh, and it was not reported then, and the main place it seems to come from is from a X account that I can't even communicate with the guy, he hasn't responded yet, so I can't sit there and do that. The Miami Herald came out with a piece on it, and unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. It does say, uh, as you know, Miami is home to a lot of Cubans, Venezuelans, and Colombians who have all fled their country, so they're pretty plugged into this, and I think that's why the Miami Herald covered it, but it says, "Ex-Venezuelan spies chief alleges Maduro regime runs drugs, gangs, spies in the US." What I think the black community would say, and I'm not gonna speak for them, but what I think they would say is we've been known about this since the 1980s. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall, so all of the information that's inclined in there is blocked. I did go to a couple of fact checker sites trying to make sure that, if I say something on this microphone, I want you to be able to run with it and take it to the bank. And I just don't feel comfortable putting that list out yet. But there are a lot of really high ranking US senators on that list. But like I said, this also comes back to some posting that was done last year in 2025 December. The Miami Herald, their story on this was to say are dated December 3rd. So perhaps there's something being done about it and we're just not aware of it. Could it could it be put down the infinite black hole of the interweb? I'm not sure about that, but I do think that it's rather intriguing to me that you have these things starting to go around and the mainstream media is not talking about it. It's not even in the mainstream social media. It's on the outskirts of stuff. And I know lots of people like to operate in that regime, and I appreciate that. Uh, I sit there and I look at it, but I try not to pull anything from it from the aspect of is, am I going to make a decision for my family or for the radio program on a X account that has 2,000 people following it? I, I just I just don't. Now I do appreciate X, and we're gonna use some other more prominent journalists on X, but we're coming up to our first break of the hour. Good stuff is happening in Hinds County. Oh, one other thing about Hinds County that I did not realize. Do you know that Hinds County has more Republican voters than many Republican counties around the eastern part of the state? So I know that a lot of times people don't like talking about the Republican Party and the Republican Party in Hinds County, but on any given election, there's sometimes between 18 and 30,000 votes there, and that can flip a lot of elections. Now, granted, there's a lot of Democrats there too, but if those voters stay home, you gotta make that ground up somewhere else. So, that's why it's always good to go and evangelize. That's why it's always good to go out there and spread the good news. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. And I just hope that in the opening monologue, people understand just how important local politics is, just like it's really important how local journalism is. And it's just how important it is to actually read. But if you don't have a good set of glasses to where you can accurately read what you're trying to consume, you're going to have a hard time doing stuff. That's why I'm talking about my man, Bruce Bartlett, or not Bruce Bartlett, Bruce Bennett, over at iGear Optical located on 2630 Highway 80 in Pearl. Open Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 2026, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm still waiting for the VA to process my claim to get my eyes rechecked. But as soon as I do, I know I'm gonna go see my man Bruce. And he's located again at 2630 Highway 80 in Pearl. And online, you can just check him out at igearoptical.com. Don't go to one of those big box stores. Don't go to some international firm to get your glasses. Go see Bruce. He's gonna take care of you. Thanks, Bruce, for sponsoring the show. You know, journalists are some of the most incredible people on this earth. They really have the power of the pen. Yet they get offended whenever someone challenges their credibility or integrity, yet they do it all the time. I know when I was elected, I had this joker. He was terrible. Everybody knew it, and no one liked him. No one would even talk to him, and he was just an absolute abomination. And eventually, he had to leave the paper because and he went out to a different place because no one really cared for him. But we have that kind of same situation going on right here in Mississippi. One other caveat to this is that if you remember, I think it was the Associated Press, Associated Propaganda, who got kicked out of the newsroom for going ahead and just reporting on what they wanted to report on. You know, there is a freedom of the press, but it doesn't mean that whoever s- decides who gets to go into the room. AP doesn't have to be in the room all the time. They don't have to be in the general or the enclosed press pool. And we're having that same situation here in Mississippi. And this is with the Mississippi Today. The headline is misleading. The government is open. The press is being allowed into the Capitol to cover and report on the news. It's just that Mississippi Today is nothing more than a yellow journalistic rag. Do I use them for my stories? Absolutely. I love pointing out the hypocrisy in their reporting. I absolutely love destroying their narrative. It makes me happy. But here, listen to this. For journalists, getting into the politician's press conference at the Mississippi Capitol should be like trying to get into a fancy party in a country club. Not on the invitation list, you're out of luck. You know, I wonder if I could get on this list. I wonder if Clay Edwards could get on this list. I'm not sure that either one of us really wanna be on this list, but there are more news organizations in the state of Mississippi than just the Mississippi Free Press. And when you have organizations whining and complaining and running for the fields, it's just like these influencers who are only worried about how many people give them the thumbs up, how many comments they get. That's what journalism is turned into right now. The legacy media cannot compete with the new media. You've got people like Nick Shirley going around there and breaking stories that, should have been broken by some of the heavy hitters, dare I say, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal and Constitution. Yeah, I know what Rush used to call them. But my point is that just because your news organization isn't allowed into the press pool doesn't mean that the First Amendment is being trampled upon. There are other left-leaning news sources out there. Now, you say you're independent and nonpartisan, but you cannot find anything positive about a Republican on that website. Do I read it every day? Nope. But do I read it regularly for news stories and content for the radio program? Yep. And the Mississippi Today claims that they're a Pulitzer Prize winner, nonprofit news. Well, we all know how worth, worthless the Pulitzer Prize is anymore. They give it to anybody. It's not good. And I heard about this yesterday, but I really didn't say too much. But then Mississippi State Representative Clay Manziel out of Clinton, as a fellow lawmaker and the owner of 10 local sorry about that, the computer glitched for a second. As a local lawmaker and a owner of 10 local Mississippi newspapers, I agree with Speaker Jason White 100%. No media organization is entitled to access. Every elected, it's sitting there trying. And he goes on to just talk about how the news media thinks that they're entitled to all this access. You know, there's nothing saying that Mississippi Free Press can't pick up the phone and give somebody a call. There's nothing at all that's saying that. But what they enjoy doing is just going out there and making a big scene, making a big kerfuffle, making it look turn into something that it's not. It's truly disappointing, actually, to see something like the Mississippi Free Press. But with that, there's another story that I wanna talk about, and I'll with that, there's a trial starting, and I don't know if you've heard about this. It's, Ted DiBiase Jr. They're expecting, once the jury is seated, to have a 3-week trial. And this all stems back to a welfare scandal brought forth by Shad White. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty, but it now seems that after all of this delaying and campaigning, the trial's going to start. Can't cannot complain about that. The wheels of justice burn slow, real slow, and it seems in continuing with the local news, it just seems that John Horn is setting up a lot of committees starting in 2026, and there's another one. This one's coming from Dark Horse Press. Mayor John Horn and Interfaith Task Force will host a 2026 all-day call to prayer and action on January 15th at Thalia Mara Hall, inviting churches and faith groups across Jackson to unite in prayer and community service. This is a great thing. This is exactly what churches should be doing. It's just not about Sunday mornings or Sunday evenings or even Wednesday nights. It's about being active in your community. And, good on Mayor Horn for getting this all put together. Following the gathering, participating faith groups will be asked to adopt a parish in their area and commit to projects in improving those neighborhoods. Planned efforts include cleanups, community outreach, safety initiatives, and other forms of supporting of their local neighbors. We do this all the time at our church. We go to We Will Go. We go to a couple other places inside Jackson, and I may attend this. I know I don't live in Jackson, but our church supports Jackson, and I'm one of those rare souls who believes that Jackson can be taken back from its last 2 decades of downward progression thanks to the Democrats. The pull quote from this is, "If every congregation took ownership of its own neighborhood, the entire city would be transformed." That's true. That's true. But so many of us are busy. We got all sorts of things going on. Do we really have time for a neighborhood cleanup? And like my one friend in Jackson says, every year they clean up the same neighborhood, and within 3 weeks, it's completely trashed all over again. There has to be some type of culture change. There has to be some type of movement inside Jackson to where people start taking pride in their homes, pride in their neighborhoods. I was reminded that, uh, crime and murders inside Jackson were down a significant percent. We're still the murder capital of the world or of, the United States per capita, but hey, that's it's moving in the right direction. And I'm not gonna be one of these people who's so black-pilled. I'm just not, guys. I'm not gonna go down that road. Like Richard was saying yesterday, I'm the Lone Ranger or whatever. I don't wanna get caught up in that. That's what everybody wants you to be. They want you to just be dependent on something, and I'm not. We're independent here at WYAB. Speaking of independence, if you are a church that's looking to have your Sunday service broadcasted on WYAB, we have 2 openings available. If that's something you think your church might be interested in, you can go ahead and give me an email at andrew@wyab.com. Love to talk to you about it. It's a weekly commit or it's a yearly commitment, and, but it's gonna be able to give great exposure to your church here in the local area. You're helping your community, and hopefully we can build and grow it together. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back.
Give me 30 seconds and I'll make you learn AI. Watch this. Let's be real. Most people over 40.
Hey, I just want to say if you're in the
Oh, don't fear the Reaper. We don't here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. You know, the whole age of social media has really done a number on humanity. Our sense of entitlement has grown incredibly. Our ability to restrain our thoughts and what we say, whether that be in person or online, has completely fallen by the wayside. And you have rocket scientists, future rocket scientists, engineers, and astronauts, as Clay would say, like this, saying craziness like this.
Hey, I just want to say if you're in the U.S. military and you didn't defect or leave the army or disobey orders for an army that we know is going to destroy millions of people's lives, I hope you get sent back in a body bag. I do hope you get sent back in a body bag. Yes, that goes for you watching this. Yeah, so I hope you become a magnet for bullets.
Can you believe that? I got this from Anton Daniels on YouTube. That's his channel, Anton Daniels. And this is the mentality of so many of our youth today. Now, let me ask you, where could have this come from? Where could this line of thinking come from? Could this come from retired Navy Captain Mark Kelly's video? Sure sounds like it. He used, if you didn't disobey lawful orders. Again, this is why Mark Kelly is having his lunch given to him. And there are a lot of people who are whining and complaining over it. And I did get one text yesterday. Well, I got actually quite a few, but talking about Mark Kelly and wanting to know exactly why does he fall under different status than somebody else. So if you're an officer and you're retired, and I believe this is for senior enlisted too, if you get to retirement and you continue to collect a paycheck from the Department of Defense or the Department of Veterans Affairs, depending on how it all works out, then you have to still fall under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Because we wanna make sure that you're going out there and you're continuing to represent the US military even though you are retired, and you still have your opinion. You can say that the president is full of whatever you want and this, that, and the other thing, you don't like what's going on. But as soon as you start using your position in a way that could influence the troops, well, now there's a problem. Because now you are sowing the seeds of dissension within the ranks. Now you are causing discord, not only between the military, but now the civilian population as well. And for as smart as these smartphones are, they sure do make people stupid. They sure do some stupid things. I sure am glad I didn't have a smartphone when I was growing up. I don't know how my kids do it. The things that these smartphones are doing to our kids, not just our kids, but humanity in general, they're literally programming us. I'd love to see a study out there of how many times a grown adult who did not grow up in the 19 or grew up, let's say, 1990 and before, acts compared to a kid who was born in, say, 2005, who grew up in the smart cell phone age. They're addicted to it. There are studies out there that show that kids who spend more and more time on their cell phones have a harder time sleeping at night, that they're not creating not building the social skills that are needed to actually function in a society, especially one like America, where we're expected to be knowledgeable on current events, be involved in civics, help make the world a better place, quote unquote, save the environment, for crying out loud. They're not out there. And you look at how the testosterone in men has dropped considerably. What's causing it? Some people would say it's the clothing that we wear. Some say it's the water that we drink. Some say it's the food we consume. We have so many different, I'm not gonna call them crises or emergencies, but so many pressing needs in the United States today that we just have to take this one bite at a time. Don't get black-pilled. Focus on the things you can actually have control over, and do the best that you can that way. And that means voting in local elections. That means participating in elections even if you think that you like the person that you want to, you've got a good candidate that you wanna support, but you don't think he's gonna win. You still have to go out and vote. And that's one thing in Mississippi that is rather shocking to me, that is very different from Illinois, is that there are so many of us Mississippians out there who just don't vote, just don't care. Maybe it was where I lived, and just that portion of the population was much more politically inclined than other portions of Illinois. But when you think about it, we're gonna have a primary in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party on March 10th, and you will not even have 20% of the population go vote in it. And I hear what the Hinds County people are saying. "Andy, I'm a Republican, but if I don't vote in this Democrat primary, we're gonna get something really bad, and that's what I've done, and that's what I'm gonna continue to do." Got it. At least you're voting. I w I wonder how that works, though, if you vote in a Democrat primary and then all of a sudden you start getting all the Democrat mailing and the texting and everything like that. It's it's gonna be one of those situations where we have a chance to actually have real change here at the local level, and please don't discount that. Please don't discount that. Today, going on right now, Mama Hamill's Grip and Grin, Bruce Bartlett's out there, a couple other great people are out there, and the guest speaker, Lynn Finch. Might wanna go hear what she has to say. It starts at 11:30. You still got time to make it out there. Mama Hamill's is good. Mama Hamill's is good, but you know what else is good? Home cooking too. People have asked, "Andy, how come you don't go to Grip and Grin?" Well, I don't go to Grip and Grin because I'm here, and I really enjoy the radio. I did go to it almost, I missed a 1 or 2, but I did go to it regularly, but it just doesn't work in my schedule. But there is gonna be an event coming up on the 27th of January, which I'm pretty excited about, and, when we get the opportunity to actually formally talk about it, I will. But you're gonna wanna save the date, the 27th of January, roughly at around 5:30. It's gonna be good. It's just gonna be another opportunity where you get a chance to plug into some local conservative Republican leaders. Some of them are more conservative than Republican. Some of them are more Republican or government types, but we're all basically pushing in the same direction. And I do hear you out there, those who are ready for their pound of flesh, and I'm dissatisfied with it. But then I look back and say, okay, we got a lot of things accomplished in 2025, despite not having the prosecutions, and I'm just gonna let this play out. I can't control what happens in Washington, D.C. Maybe some of you can. Some of you can stroke a big check, but I can't. So the things that I can control, I'm gonna control, and the things that I can't, I'm just gonna give it up to God and press on. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. We are in a commercial break. We'll be back in just a hot minute. Can you call right back? It's a terrible connection. Just call right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. The time just goes by so quickly. And we didn't even really talk about anything national yet. We're going to definitely do that. We did talk about CBS yesterday and how they were going to start changing their format and how they look at certain things. And there is a clip that's going around that is quite incredible. Actually, I would have suspected that coming from a mainstream news outlet like CBS, but yet here we are, keeping it local and keeping it positive because we know how positive Kingfish is over at Jackson Jambalaya. Tough love for Jackson. Jackson Water Manager Ted Henlon issued a following response to the resolution passed by the Jackson City Council yesterday. Well, let's take this phone call instead. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, Andy. This is Leah.
Hi, Miss Leah. How you doing?
Hi, all right. I was trying to call you. I wanted to give some recognition to a person that is one of your sponsors, and that's Bruce Bennett out at the Eye Gear Optical in Pearl. I went out there. I needed some glasses, prescription glasses, and I called out there, and he told me what I needed, the prescription from the doctor. And I went out there, and he got me where I was fixed up, I think, pretty good. And I have been very, very pleased. I was very pleased with him. His office is fixed up so nice. It's so clean. He's got anything you could want in there.
He really does a good job.
And I know y'all are also good friends too, but he's a wonderful man. I know I stayed out there with him until it was about time for him to close. I know he was thinking, just let this woman get out here. I need to go home. But he's a wonderful man, and he's very knowledgeable. He's very smart about what he does. He's not going to just throw you a pair of glasses on and say, hey, these look good. He's going to tell you what looks good on your face, just everything you want to know. I recommend him very, very highly. And thank you for recommending him to your listeners.
Oh, ma'am, thank you so much. I really appreciate the phone call. I really do.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate him also.
Yep.
All right. You have a good one now.
Yep, you have a good one too. It's always good when you can report on those kinds of things. I'm telling you, advertising on WYAB works. The listeners are loyal, and when they get great service, they'll let you know. If something goes wrong, they'll let you know that too. But the people who support WYAB.com or WYAB, the people who support the Andrew Gosser Show, really solid characters. We really don't have too much time to go into this, but I did want to say that, that the city of Jackson passed a resolution the other day, and the Ted Hennepin issued a response. The Jackson Water is aware of the resolution introduced by the city of Jackson and believes it's important to provide the context to this matter. For years, the city of Jackson and members of the city council had the opportunity to responsibly manage and invest the water system and failed to do so. Jackson Water exists because of that failure. Now, after the system is working well, delivering water and keeping raw sewage off the streets, and after the system was removed from the city's control by the federal courts, the council is attempting to direct the very entity tasked with fixing it, fixing what they could not. And, here's the problem. Government screws it up. We elect a bunch of people who are unqualified to actually do the job that they were elected to do. And then it takes a private organization to come in and fix it. And now they want to take it right back and just run it into the ground again. That's not how this is supposed to work. We've got a lot more to talk about here on the Andrew Gosser Show. We've got CBS News. We've got to talk about Venezuela. And we've got to talk about just the things that continue to break out of Minnesota in the Somali fraud gang. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Be blessed.
user. I'm Steve Kafin. In separate maneuvers, the U.S. military has seized 2 Venezuelan-linked tankers, one in the Caribbean, the other in the North Atlantic, a vessel the U.S. had tracked for weeks and was under a Russian flag and escort. CBS's James Laporta.
CBS News first reported that U.S. forces were planning to take the ship, and then cut to today, and it's been a very busy day for the U.S. military. Not only have they seized the Bella 1 in U.S. European Command, another ship, the Sophia, was seized in U.S. Southern Command. The Kremlin has responded. They've said no state has the right to use force against vessels that are flagged under their state.
The administration says Venezuela has cooperated in the Caribbean seizure, and the U.S. will selectively remove sanctions to enable the shipping and sale of the country's oil to global economies. As Democrats criticize the U.S. weekend attack in Venezuela that landed President Maduro in custody, House Speaker Mike Johnson pushes back.
The War Powers Act has been cited by Democrats. It only requires notification to Congress within 48 hours of the initiation of hostilities. It does not require prior approval, and they properly notify Congress.
Military action is said to be among the possibilities under consideration as the Trump administration considers a takeover of Greenland. The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland have demanded a meeting with Secretary of State Rubio.
I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then, but I'm not having anything further to add to that.
On the Health Watch today, CBS's Stacey Lynn tells us
the White House has announced new dietary guidelines for Americans that it says are science-driven. They prioritize high-quality protein, healthy fats, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains while avoiding processed foods and refined carbohydrates.
And there's new information on a rough flu season.
45 states are reporting high or very high flu activity, and the CDC says doctors' visits for the flu have hit their highest level in nearly 3 decades. Atlanta pediatrician Jennifer Shue warns parents to watch out for symptoms.
They might have a hard time breathing, so lips could turn blue. They could be panting, heaving.
9 children are among the 5,000 who have died so far this season. Allison Keyes, CBS News.
Warner Brothers is again rejecting a takeover bid from Paramount, the parent of CBS News, telling shareholders to stick with a rival offer from Netflix. That's a $72 billion deal for its streaming and studio business. Wall Street, right now the Dow is down 74 points. The S&P and NASDAQ trading higher. This is CBS News.
You still got it, but your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Sponsored.
Drill, baby, drill. If you're an SEC accredited investor looking for one of the most powerful tax advantages available in 2026, now is the time to take a serious look at Encore Energy. Under current federal guidelines, accredited investors may be able to deduct up to 100% of their investment in 2026. And for many investors, that level of tax relief is simply too valuable to ignore. Encore Energy offers operator direct participation in U.S. horizontal oil drilling in areas with a long record of success, including more than 100 producing wells already drilled. These are established fields with existing
theft by unauthorized taking of a firearm. Now, Lewiston City Mayor Carl Shaleen did call on Osmond to step down and not take this position, but his attorneys tell us that Osmond still plans to serve on the city council. The council will go into executive session to consider the request by the previous council to investigate his qualifications for the job.
It just keeps getting worse and worse. I don't think so, Dogfish. I think cooler heads are going to prevail. Welcome back to the second hour of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. And we are streaming at WYAB.com. If you haven't yet, please follow me on X, Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. And the number today, if you want to be part of the show, 601-879-0002. The text line is open, 601-879-5060. Today is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. And the mission here, it's standard. We're here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? All of y'all are the saints. And you know, it's just I planted it, Apollos watered it, but God gives the increase. Love that scripture. It's true. You do it all the time in your life. You plant seeds in your kid's brain. You plant seeds at your job. You might have people come along and further water those thoughts and ideas, those seeds. And ultimately it flourishes into something awesome. Nothing wrong with that. I guess where we need to start is with Marco Rubio. And we're going to get into the Venezuela stuff, I promise. But I made such a big deal out of CBS News doing all the things that saying they're going to change their news cycle, how they're going to report news. I couldn't help but notice that during the break, top of the hour break, did you hear it? CBS News sponsored by Pfizer. That looks a little bit sus. But CBS News, I played the audio earlier, and just listen to what they're saying now. It's actually incredible.
And only in America, the many lives and many jobs of Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants and a former Florida senator. He's now the face of U.S. foreign policy and President Trump's point man on Venezuela, all in addition to his roles as Secretary of State, interim national security advisor, and acting national archivist and USAID chief. Whatever you think of his politics, you got to admit it's an impressive resume. And now AI memes have added to that portfolio, casting Secretary Rubio as the new governor of Minnesota, the new Shah of Iran, the prime minister of Greenland, the new manager of Manchester United, the head of Hilton Hotels, and highest of high honors of all, the new Michelin man. Now, back in real life, of course, these memes may not add up to much, but for Rubio's hometown fans, which are many around here in Miami, it is a sign of how Florida, once an American punchline, has become a leader on the world stage. Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
Dude, Marco Rubio needs to go out and buy a lottery ticket right now. Right now. I've never seen a puff piece by the mainstream media on a conservative like that, ever. Never, ever, ever. Marco Rubio is definitely at the point for President Trump when it comes to all of his international affairs and dealings. You know, the Secretary of State, the president have to work hand in hand along with the vice president. And you'd have to say that Marco Rubio is doing a phenomenal job right now, being able to balance all of these different things that are going on. So that kind of brings us to Venezuela and what's going on there. And there's all sorts of diplomatic contacts and communications going on between Marco Rubio and the United States, Marco Rubio, and Russia. Russia has just deployed a submarine to try to help escort one of its tankers out of there. And Dogfish is asking, do you think that there's going to be any type of problem with what's going on in with these tankers? And I just don't see it. I don't see it, dude. I don't think Russia wants any of our smoke. And frankly, I don't think the United States wants any beef with Russia. TASS is, the Russian propaganda. I almost read the TASS news report. I was going to read it for you guys, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be used by Russian propaganda. And I read it and I was just like, nah, I'm not going to put that on the air. Dogfish asks, will Marco Rubio have an official office set up in the Palace of Venezuela? No. Although if you did obviously see the meme that was talked about in the news article by CBS, they're trying to give him all this praise. I think they're almost going to set him up for a fall. And you even posted it yourself. You were talking about uh, will Marco Rubio, or I'm sorry, um, Marco Rubio's doing a really good job. Do you think he could be the VP for JD Vance? Yeah, he could do that. And honestly, if you look at the betting markets, not that you should use betting markets to choose your political uh, how you're going to vote, but the betting market's thinking that it's going to be JD Vance president, Marco Rubio vice president, which really makes you wonder what's going to happen to Ron DeSantis. Is he going to go to the Senate? Because he can't run for governor in Florida. He's term limited out. But man, you want to talk about shooting yourself in the foot by running for president against Trump. I mean, that really killed Ron DeSantis. It really did. But if you look, another famous Florida politician tried to run against Donald Trump in 2016. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that in 2026, Marco Rubio would be the Secretary of State under President Donald J. Trump? That's one was worth a lotto ticket in and of itself right there. So this is coming from Mario Nawathel on X. And it says, U.S. tries to seize Venezuela oil tanker, so Russia responds with the submarine. And this has been reported by multiple places, but this was the first place it was reported before it went to CBS and to NBC and all that. The U.S. is actively trying to seize the Marinera. Who renamed this ship had a different name. I was reading about this last week, and they just spray painted it with the Marinera, a Russian flagged tanker. Not the Marinera. That sounds more of like an Italian Mediterranean name, not necessarily a Russian name. Now Russia has deployed a submarine to escort the tanker off the Venezuela coast in what looks like a direct challenge to the United States naval enforcement. I genuinely believe that they're trying to. I think, as I understand the story now, that the Venezuelan tankers are trying to get away so that they can go do other tanking activities in other places around the world. The port of Caracas, Venezuela, that's locked down. I mean, you've got a carrier strike group out there. I think you've got 2 frigates and a cruiser out there running around just patrolling. You've got the Coast Guard out there doing stuff. And you have other assets that don't necessarily have names that you would recognize, just out there doing what they do. And again, this just goes to show you when the United States decides it wants to go out and actually flex, it can. And you do hear about, of course, you hear about the Democrats complaining about this, but there are some Republicans who bring up some good points. And if you haven't heard Rand Paul's questioning of this, he's very quick to say, look, he's not challenging President Trump. He just has questions about it. And that's how you have to do it. Because if you just come out and try to face shot President Trump, he's going to come out there and respond accordingly. It's just not a good political tactic to sit there and try to go mano a mano per se. I don't think right now that they're with the Republicans. It almost, and this is just my sense of it, talking to Republicans who are elected from precinct delegate like me, all the way up to people who are in state legislators inside and outside of Mississippi. I think there's a healthy respect for President Trump and what he's doing. The Venezuelan people definitely love and adore President Trump. And there was I had it saved somewhere. I think maybe it's on my X account. I'll check it real quick here. But there were a bunch of Venezuelans who were absolutely just so excited to have their country back, and they feel like they're getting it back. And yes, there's motorcycle gangs running around right now trying to cause hate and discontent, just like there is in Iran. I mean, how crazy of a world is it that we're not even talking about Iran right now, which is having really good things happening? I honestly think the destabilization that's happening in Iran, which is a good thing. You don't want those mullahs in charge of nothing. They're the ones who are funding Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, and there's one other one, escapes my name, but doesn't matter. Hamas. How could I forget Hamas? You know, if Iran can't put its oil out into the free market, those organizations lose their funding, along with the country of Cuba. And we all know how the people in Cuba, the people themselves love America, but the ruling class in Cuba absolutely cannot stand a successful United States. They can't stand it so much they tried to put nukes on their island from Russia. And again, that was back in 1962, 63. I wasn't born yet. History's a little bit off, but I know it's in between there. Um, Russia tried to put intercontinental ballistic missiles on Cuba. And I know the older generations get that, but so many of our young kids don't even realize that because we do such a great job teaching U.S. history in our schools. We don't even talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis, not even for a day. But I don't think that this is gonna have a enormous war uh, war erupt from this. I do think it will have a lot of fear-mongering, especially by the political left. It There'll be a lot of hooting and hollering, and we played Minority Leader of the House, Speaker Minority Leader Jeffries. You know, he's sitting there absolutely chastising the United States for freeing a country and scooping up a dictator. And I did get a story. There is one story out there that's saying that the charges have been supposedly changed on Maduro. I haven't found any corroborating evidence of that yet, so I'm just going to leave that up to the sleuths on the internet. It's really hard to even if you see what AI is doing, and I know I said we were going to talk about it this hour, but AI is getting so good at mimicking the way people write, the way people tell stories. You can have AI write a news story pretending it's the New York Times, and you wouldn't know the difference. It would go 3 times around the world before it would be figured out that it was a AI generated news story. But by then, it's already too late. The cat's already out of the bag. Speaking about the cat getting out of the bag, when we get back, we are gonna go talk about the fraud that's happening in and around the United States with this specific group of people who are living in the United States, the Somali population. And we've got a new one coming in, and it's going to be not surprising. It's sad, but we've got to talk about it right here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Oh, yeah. I love that song. It's awesome. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. This is going to be the Fast and the Furious Somali edition segment of the Andrew Gosser Show. It'll probably be the next segment, too. Well, we're starting off. There is a new player in the Somali crime gang operation that is going on inside the United States, but it's not in Seattle. No, it's not in Minnesota. No, it's not in Michigan. It's not even in Columbus, Ohio. Where is it at?
We're talking about Iman Osman. He's the Lewiston City Councilor elect. He's being charged with 1 count of receiving stolen property and 1 count of theft by unauthorized taking of a firearm. Now, Lewiston City Mayor Carl Shaleen did call on Osman to step down and not take this position, but his attorneys tell us that Osman still plans to serve on the city council. The council will go into executive session to consider the request by the previous council to investigate his qualifications for the job. This is according to the city council agenda. The council will also consider a resolution to retain an independent investigator to prepare a report on facts related to Osman's qualifications. This is also outlined in the city's agenda for tonight. Osman is also under scrutiny about his legal address. It's listed as 210 Blake Street, but that building was condemned back in 2024 due to a drug raid. Now, Osman has not made it public at this current moment where he's living right now.
That's in Lewiston, Maine. They're running the whole Elon Omar place or script, and they're just doing it at the local level. It's kind of like what I talk about all you conservatives. No one who wanted to run against this guy, and now he doesn't even have a legal address, which for me, election law is different in every state, but normally you have to live inside the district or the ward or the boundary of the district that you're living in. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure that there are more all around the United States who are starting to get into these elected positions. Some of them could even potentially start to become lawyers and judges and start going ahead and having their influence there. We always talk about the liberal influence of the bench, how they're legislating from the bench. Well, it's continuing again. Where's the next one I want to hit? This is absolutely shocking. This auditor. The auditor has found out that not only have the Somalis infiltrated the government, but they're getting paid on both sides. They're getting paid by the government, and then they're being paid by the sides that they go ahead and do this. This is a long clip, but I think you need to understand because Tim Walz is in a world of hurt. They're actually calling for him to resign now, but it's great that he resigns. But just like the caller the other day said it, I think it was Brother Richard. He said that, hey, just because you resign doesn't mean that you don't go to jail. And these people have to go to jail. And I genuinely believe that's where a lot of this black pilling that's going around our nation right now is coming from. Is the American people are not seeing criminals go to jail. They're seeing everything but. And there's nothing that you can really say to that other than, yep, it's true. But let's listen to this report. And again, it doesn't have the news station on there. Maybe that's why the way that they edited this. This is coming from Eric Doherty on X.
Against fraud. The performance audit shows the Behavioral Health Administration sent millions of dollars out the door in grants without making proper checks into who was receiving them. And that is not even the most jaw-dropping finding. Lou Raguse has tonight's top story. Lou?
Julie, according to the nonpartisan legislative auditor, this is another case of mismanagement of taxpayer money. But perhaps the most explosive revelation is that managers within DHS, the Department of Human Services, tried to cover their tracks by backdating and creating new documents.
First of all those people who tried to cover their tracks by backdating documents and creating new documents, they all need to be suspended. They need to be dog walked out of their office. They need to be put on administrative leave while they get investigated. And should it be found that there are crimes committed, they should be prosecuted for such crimes. You'll never find a greater hive of villainy than government workers who think they have a job forever. I know I was one. And I always told myself I would never be in a spot more than 8 years, and that was by design. The military moves you around all the time, but even after I got out and was elected, and I never wanted to make it a career. And let me tell you, some of the perks that they get, some of the healthcare plans that they get that are paid for by the taxpayer, it's shameful, but let's continue.
But I do want to talk about what a serious issue this is and how it is, frankly, unacceptable.
Another sobering report by the Office of the Legislative Auditor, this one concerning the Behavioral Health Administration within the Department of Human Services, which issues grants to providers treating mental health and drug and alcohol addiction. Hundreds of millions.
How many Somali kids have been diagnosed with autism? Connect the dots. How many kids have been diagnosed with other learning disabilities? Connect the dots.
Millions of dollars each year. The audit found them issuing grants to applicants without a bidding process.
So what we saw is that there was multiple entities that could have been eligible, and they chose not to provide a justification for why they were picking those.
This report is quite stunning.
One outrageous example, the auditors found a grantee that was paid $672,000 for 1 month of work without any info on what they do. And the audit says the grant
$672,647.78 for 1 month of work without telling what they did. Let that sink in. That's more than some people make in 20 years. And with no job description, no statement of work. What were these auditors thinking? I mean, it just goes to show you that the corruption runs all up and down the ladder.
Manager who paid it then left DHS a couple days later and became a paid consultant for that company.
They must have gotten so brazen. They must have gotten so bold and so courageous that I'm just going to steal. Hold on, let me get that number again. $674,000. I'm just going to go steal all that and then go get hired on after I quit my job and take that salary there. That's what that was. That's what that was. And these senators, these Minnesota senators, they just look lost. They just look lost. They know it's bad.
To me, that's criminal.
Auditor Judy Randall says she was most shocked that during the audit, multiple DHS managers backdated or created new documents to try to cover their tracks.
Frankly, in the 27 plus years I've been with OLA, I have never seen this before. I will say we have had suspicions periodically, but we have never been able to prove it, to document it. And we did in this case. And it's very troubling.
Temporary DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi's response.
I was shocked to hear this information in the exit conference.
I think you get the point. We're at the point now where we just need to completely shut off all funding for anything that has anything to do with these types of grants and funding streams. They just have to go. They have to go, and there needs to be serious investigation and prosecution of those people in the middle and on top, and all the end users who got all that money. They need to reclaim it as much as they can. And we're going to have another story talking about how over $700 million in cash was funneled out of the United States via Minneapolis. But we need to go ahead and reclaim all the cash that we can, and then denaturalize these citizens if they became naturalized citizens and send them back to Somalia, or if they're here on a visa, cancel their visa and send them back to Somalia, or if they're here illegally. Of course, it goes without saying, we need to go ahead and ship them back to where they came from. You know, and we in Mississippi understand this. We are the hospitality state. We want people to come to America because they want to better their lives and become Americans. We do not want people to come to America come here and try to have us assimilate to their way of thinking, to their God. That's not what this is about. You know, we took in many Afghanis during the global war on terror. We took in many Iraqis, many Iranians who live here now, many Venezuelans who love America and who love Venezuela and are looking forward to the day that they can go back to Caracas or wherever they're from in Venezuela. And we should champion that and cheer that. Now, you notice that they had an interim auditor. There are a lot of people out there who love Shad White and a lot of people out there who don't. But that comes with the territory of being an auditor. You're nobody's friend. You're there to do the job. And I'm not saying we don't have something like this going on in Mississippi, but I am glad that we have someone like Shad White doing it more than someone like these crazy people up in Minnesota. We do not want any of that liberal nonsense down here. And this is coming from a guy who comes from the People's Democratic Republic of Illinois. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back.
Promoting U.S. protests against the Trump administration's Maduro arrest, and those protests are being organized by Chinese.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. And again, this isn't being reported in the New York Times or the Washington Post, but it is coming from Real America's Voice. They're a smaller journalistic operation out of Washington, D.C., and they say feds probe hundreds of millions in suspected Somali cash in luggage leaving Minneapolis airport. Officials said most of the cash detected in luggage involved small number of money couriers of Somali descent. The routine routes were to Dubai via Amsterdam, usually from Minneapolis, but other times from Seattle, Dallas, Columbus, and Atlanta. So we know that they have operations at least going on in these cities, in these states. Big operations. $700 million. The Transportation Security Administration flagged nearly $700 million in cash detected in passengers' luggage leaving the Minneapolis airport in the last 2 years. A massive cash exodus believed to be tied to Somali immigrants and their money couriers. Remember how they were talking about remittance fees, 25%, 50% remittance fees going when people who were working here in the United States were sending their money back to their whatever country it was from? They're not even paying remittance fees on that. I mean, what do you say to somebody who's got 15 million in a bag? What are you doing with this 15 million in cash? And you know this wasn't circulated money. These were all fresh, crisp dollar bills. You think about it, how during the Obama administration, the first Trump administration, and the Biden administration, how they were just printing cash and more cash and more cash. Where was all that money going? Where was that all being taken to? It's a huge story. Minneapolis travelers alone had 342.37 million in their luggage in 2024 and 349.4 million in 2025. And those totals nationwide are likely to be much, much higher, officials told Just the News. TSA agents routinely flag the cash movements to Customs and Border Patrol agents and Homeland Security investigations, but there was little curiosity during the Biden administration in investigating into the nature of the players, and only recently began since Donald Trump returned to the White House, officials told Just the News. You think about it. Remember how they said that we had to have a special law to build the border fence? And you didn't need a new law, you just needed a president who was gonna actually be cognitively aware and actually have the want to do something. And to all of my friends on the far right and the far left who don't or can't stand President Trump, this is a good reason why so many of us in the middle, whether that be the middle left, to the center right, to the middle right, that's why we like Donald Trump. It's because he does what he says he's gonna do. In fact, we like that in all of our politicians, but they're just so few and far between. That's why we like Congressman Burchett so much out of Tennessee, always walking around in his Carhartt, giving us reports. We don't see other congressmen do it. We wish other congressmen would do it. I wish Trent Kelly, Michael Guest, and Mike Easel would do that. I wish Benny Thompson would do that, but they don't. And now all of this is coming out from so many different sources, from so many different agencies, that they're sitting there, they're lost. They did not expect for this to happen. They did not expect for Donald Trump to beat Kamala and Tim Walz. In the original game plan, they didn't. But as things progressed down the line, they clearly saw that there were problems there. This is for Mississippi Parents for Vaccination Rights, MPVR. This is coming from Republic Broadcasting Network, January 6th. The Washington Post recently published a detailed investigation showing that childhood vaccination rates across the United States are falling sharply. Yes, Many of us have watched the documentary Died Suddenly. If you haven't watched the documentary Died Suddenly yet, go over to Rumble and just type in Died Suddenly and go watch it. It literally will scare you to death. I was going to say scare the hell out of you, but I don't know if it would do that. But you watch people, and it's the same. You watch it, and people who just spend 5 hours educating themselves on what actually happened in COVID have a completely different worldview than those who don't. Particularly for measles, fewer counties now meet the 95% coverage level commonly associated with the herd immunity, and the millions of children who attend schools in communities below that threshold. The real problem we're having with these measles outbreaks and everything it's the illegal immigrant communities. It's unfortunate, but it's true. They bring all their stuff over here, and we get it. Instead, readers are offered familiar diagnosis, distrust the authorities, political polarization, misinformation, and backlash against mandates. All of this is curiously detached from responsibility. And that's the big point of contention right there. They rushed out these vaccines, and they were the pharmaceutical companies were completely inoculated from any repercussions of their vaccinations. It was ready, set, fire, aim. During the COVID-19 period, public health authorities repeatedly overstated certainty, minimized uncertainty, and treated legitimate scientific disagreement as a threat. There are scientists out there who swear up and down that they knew that this was humanly altered after studying it for just a couple weeks. They knew that this wasn't something natural. And what happened to them? They were banned off of Facebook. They were banned off of X or Twitter. They were banned off of Instagram and YouTube. And think about it. Where does the majority of Gen Z get their news today? They get it off of TikTok. They do. Whereas Gen Xers, we tend to be more online digital, whether that be Citizens Free Press or something like that. Millennials are more of the YouTube type. And boomers still read the newspaper and watch CBS News. This goes on and on, but it says, worse, dissent was often suppressed rather than debated. Scientists and clinicians who questioned the prevailing policies on lockdowns, school closures, or mandates were frequently labeled as misinformation spreaders rather than engaged in the merits. Government coordination with social media platforms blurred the line between combating falsehood and policy debate. And that's where we're still having this debate today. Whether it be Blue Sky or X, Facebook or TikTok, Instagram or Snap, people are still debating whether or not on the merits of COVID-19. And one thing I do wish the president would do is come out and give a clarification on this. You know, he was behind Project Warp Speed. That was one of President Trump's main pushes. And I'm not calling him out on it. He did what he thought he had to do with the knowledge that he had at the time. But hindsight is 2020. And, you know, when we make a mistake here on the program, we always come back and correct it. Haven't had to do it much. I think I've had 2 or 3. But you think about all the stories that we do cover here on this show and how well we're carrying them. It is significant when you have the leader of the free world pushing something and then realizing that there was a problem. Once that line is crossed, institutional trust does not merely decline, it inverts. And that's what's happening with the CDC. That's what is happening with our judicial system. That's what's happening with our mainstream media. the public just doesn't trust it. And that's when the scary stuff starts to happen. And that's where I genuinely believe the one world government type folks really want to get America to be, to where we just distrust everything and we don't even trust our neighbors anymore. We don't even trust our local politicians. And I'm not talking like state reps, state senators. I'm going more local, like the mayor or the alderman. They don't trust the dog catcher. They don't trust the local police. They don't trust the local judge. That's where I'm at, and that's where I see this going. I'm not black-pilled because I still believe in America, and I have strong faith in our men in uniform, men and women in uniform. There are lots of good people out there, but again, it's always the first or second, third, fourth, fifth person who takes that stand and they get the sword. Is the next man up to get the sword? How do you fight back on that? Go ahead. You're on the air. You got 3 minutes.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, this is Pastor JB.
Hey, Pastor.
I have a question. President Trump was misled. Dr. Fauci misled him.
I agree.
But the president has a problem with admitting that he made a mistake. Now, he is not a medical expert. He relied on the so-called experts. And so, I mean, that's the best that he could do.
Yep.
But my problem is that he's got to realize he's a man. He's not invincible. And I don't know what's holding him up, the kind of bravado that he's exhibited. I'm sure there must be something really holding him back that he's not, other than his pride and arrogance, the fact that he haven't brought this thing out.
Yeah, it bothers me a little bit. And again, President Trump has done so much good for this country and nation and in the world and the globe. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm done with President Trump because he didn't get this right.
No.
But as a Christian and as a man and as a brother, I would be like, man, let's just say this is what I saw. This is the decision I made. And this is how we need to fix it moving forward. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And that's what, and I think that would say a lot about people who doubt his integrity as well.
Yep.
But you know what, brother? It also says to me that there's some serious stuff going on on the other side of the curtain.
There's definitely stuff back there that they don't want us to know yet.
That's right.
Yep.
So all we can do is pray for him, support him, and try to get the vote out.
Yep. Hey, we have to have lunch sometime, Pastor.
You know what? I love that. I will.
You got my text line. Just shoot me a text and we'll link it up.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Give me that text. Well, just call out the text line again, and I'll get that. I'll send you that text with my name.
Awesome, Pastor. I really appreciate it. We're up against a hard break. I got to let you go, but I appreciate the phone. Yep. Take care, Pastor. That was Pastor JB. And we are so grateful and thankful for him. We are up against a hard break. We're going to take it right now. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB.
Lieutenant Michael.
And we are back. Final segment of the Andrew Gosser Show. I just want to say thank you to everybody who called in. The text line, Pastor, is 601-879-5060. Let's have lunch, man. I'd really appreciate that. That'd be awesome. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in strange and mysterious times, you know? We're getting all sorts of new reports coming out now. I don't know if you heard this. This just came up in my timeline. They're completely restructuring the nutrition guidelines coming from the Health Human Services Department. No more processed foods. Do you realize what that's going to do to the American economy, first of all? We've been moving towards this processed food for the last 25 years, and now we're going to go back to real food like we have on the VA farm. The sheep are really yummy. They're delicious. They're healthy and nutritious. But we need to get back to that. People growing their own vegetables and not worrying about being put in some can and sitting on a shelf for Lord knows how long. We need to get real fruit, the fruit we pick from our own trees, and not the pretty stuff that you see in supermarkets that's been treated with chemicals that may or may not cause Parkinson's. Who knows? Maybe I thought I was eating right and was getting pesticides that I didn't even know about. I washed the fruit off. But this is all good stuff that's happening. And you know what? In just 22 hours, we're going to do it all again. Until then, take care, everybody. Continue to encourage one another and be blessed.